Good afternoon and welcome to our third talk session in our New Energy Works talk series, conversation series. I'm Drake Ambrosino. I'm a member of the sales team here at New Energy Works, and we're thrilled that you could join us today. Our conversations are being taped. This conversation is being taped, and it will be available on our website for future viewing if you choose. The other two sessions have also been recorded and are available. We'll be having a question and answer period toward the end of this session. And if you have some questions or comments, go to the tab at the bottom of your screen, the Q&A. You can type in your questions and we'll do our very best to get to those at the end of the session. If we don't get to them all, I'm glad to make a phone call a little later. Let's connect, and I'm glad to answer the questions that you might have. Our topic today is titled, We Cut It, We Raise It. We're going to touch on a number of points of what we do daily in our timber frame shops. You can see two images of those behind our gentleman, and how we bring our craft to you and your project. Joining me today are two key members from our Portland, Oregon shop. That's what you're seeing in the background. Darren Watson is our lead timber frame champion, and he's responsible for our site raisings and our timber work. And Jonathan Taylor, gentlemen, you can wave. Jonathan Taylor is our production manager, and he keeps an eye on our shop schedules, our framers, and the work that they do every day and their production. Darren, can you take a few minutes and just tell us about your background and your timber framing and your time with New Energy Works?
I've been timber framing since 2002. I got started through the Timber Framers Guild, and have been with New Energy Works since 2007. Took a brief interlude to Central Washington, but then continued on to our Oregon shop. I've been here since 2011.
Wonderful, wonderful. JT, can you give us a little summary there, please?
Absolutely. I'm a cabinet maker by training and have worked in that industry for about 15 years before I came out here to the West Coast, where I joined New Energy Works about 5 years ago. I've been passionate for the craft ever since.
And I will say that these two gentlemen are probably the key players and responsible for the great work that we do in this shop. This shop started in 2008, so it had a lot of growing pains, and of course it wasn't a great time in the economy to start a brand new venture, but we gutted it out, and here we are today, strong. And I will also say that these gentlemen have been responsible for producing most of the timber frames that I have personally sold in the Rocky Mountain area, the Midwest, and all up and down the East Coast. Most of the production comes from the West Coast because it's Douglas fir, and our sawmill source is right across the street, literally across the street from this shop. So it's very convenient, makes good sense, and it's very efficient for our business. In our previous two sessions, we focused on the design of your home, the building itself, the construction drawings, and then the development of your timber frame, the timber frame scope. That brings us to a very interesting point in what we're talking about today, and that's our timber framing shop work, cutting your timbers and planning on raising them on your site. There's a number of important details within that phase, and we hope to address these today. But before we do, I'd like to touch on maybe a little bit broader concept in this phase of timber work. I'm referring to the true craft of timber framing, what it means to us individually, what it means to our company, and what it will mean to you as we perform our craft on your site and for your home. Before we begin, I want to touch on one quick thing. Bear with me. I was reading last night in Scantlings. This is a publication from the Timber Framers Guild, sort of a monthly magazine that they put out. I was reading in here about a particular little event about this particular house. Pardon my crude sharing here, but this is the best I can do because this was quick. The the paragraph here sort of sums up what we're talking about today, and it was written by Peter Baker. Peter Baker is a grown man today. He was 8 years old, or he was a young toddler when this house was built. It was built by his parents, Frank and Brenda Baker, who were the founders of Riverbend Timber Framing. Great friends of ours, great competitors, pioneers in the timber frame industry. So bear with me a second, because this really kind of sums up what we want to talk about today. My childhood home burned down this weekend. The house that my parents built when I was a baby. And while they've built many more since, this is the one that started it all. This is the house that began my obsession with architecture, craft, and design. This is the house that made me want to be able to make things, do things, and understand how things were made. This is the house that made me believe my parents could do anything, and that community could be found anywhere. This is the house that gave me an appreciation of nature, the woods, the river around it, and how those trees could provide structure and shelter and art. We wish the Bakers, of course, good wishes, good health. This is the house that started it all, and they have developed a wonderful business, good competitors, and great friends. All right, enough on that. So let's dive into the subject of craft and what it means to us. Darren, I'm going to ask you the first question. What does the craft of timber framing mean to you, and how do you find creativity in your work?
Well, the craft of timber framing, to me, it's really the woodwork, the handwork that goes into all of the timbers here in our shop. You can see behind JT more so than you can see behind me, our Hundegger. We use that for the coarse shaping, but the real love and care comes in after that. And what was your second question, Drake?
I'm sorry. Well, and how do you find the creativity in your work? You know, the rough cutting is done with the CNC machine. Everything comes into the hand shop. Tell us how you actually go about doing that.
Yeah, it all depends on the project. On an average smooth frame, it's taking care to make sure that all the surfaces are nice and clean, all the joinery comes together with nice clean intersections, not large gaps, that chamfers look nice, or if it's a textured surface, that it's even and consistent. But, you know, if it's a different style of frame, let's say it's a hand-cut, as-found agricultural frame, it's making the pieces fit together seamlessly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great description. JT, you come from a cabinet making background.
Sure.
In your years of fine woodworking, what led you to working now in the trade of heavy timber? Very, very different medium.
Absolutely. Being that I'm from the Boston area, and you know, I used to spend time replicating 200-year-old crown moldings or building cabinets that fit into, fit in with 200-year-old houses. I really always appreciated the craft that it was and the care that was taken in those homes. And so when I moved westward, finding a place where I could still express that old world craftsmanship and that attention to detail was critical to me. And so I think that, it found me and I found it at the same time.
Wonderful. And you can experience the same thing even in these large pieces as they come together?
Absolutely. We measure and cut to such a high level of precision, and so many times we say around here that we build furniture that you can live in. And it's true. I mean, the size, I don't think the size affects the level of attention to detail that we put into it.
That's true. That's true. I'm glad you feel that way. Darren, what makes your work different than that of a typical carpenter? You're both working with wood. You're both using your hands and your skill, but there's obviously a difference.
Yeah, back to what JT was just saying, the the furniture you can live in comment. Most of what we do, virtually all that what we do, is expressed inside the house. Aside from the trim carpenters of a regular home, most of their work is concealed. So as we're working here in the shop, we're constantly thinking about, what is the homeowner going to see? How does this timber face? What does it, what's its presence in the house? Is there going to be a carving on this timber? And if so, do we need to pick a different timber to begin with? Yeah. I think there's more of that end user awareness that we focus on here.
One of the things that I enjoy is explaining the shop drawings that you use to cut the frame and then to assemble the frame. I enjoy explaining that to the customers and helping them understand where it is in each portion of the house, where that carving might be, what they're going to be seeing from a loft or from below. There's always that experience, even just on paper, that I enjoy. So let's talk about a raising day. What are your expectations on a raising day, Darren?
Oh, raising day. Smooth, safe, efficient installation of a timber frame. Really emphasis on safety. A safe, smooth raising ensures the cleanest, best installation for our clients. If everything's coming together, which from the way that we've designed all the frames, we know that it will fit, that level of concern doesn't have to be paid attention to. The actual fitment and bringing parts together carefully is what we're able to focus on. And it's a big event. Most of the time, or a lot of the time anyway, the homeowners are there and they've got friends and family, and it's a great day.
How long does a raising typically take? I know that depends on the size of the project, but
right. Typically, the crane is there from half to 2 days. Generally, it's one. It may be a long one if it's the summer, but it's generally 1 day. We do occasionally have phased raisings where we'll do some work, crane will come in, put that up, go away, come back a couple of days later to finish out once we've built some additional walls or whatever the process is requiring.
Another thing about the raising day, it's so much of a choreographed experience that I think it's easy to forget of all the work that's done ahead of time to make sure that the sequence is planned and that the pieces are in order, and that when we get there, we're executing on a plan, with highly skilled people who, know how to dance together. That's part of what makes these things go cleanly and smoothly. And we get there. I mean, we can face all manner of things on site, and that can add to the excitement and add to the fun. But that you can't forget how much planning and care goes into it ahead of getting there as well.
Right.
Yeah, I've often been asked about the length of time it takes to orchestrate our projects, from the time I might meet somebody at a show or a phone call to the actual raising. And sometimes that's a lengthy process. And I explain that it starts as a tree in the forest. And there's lots of bits and pieces that have to go together to make this happen for you. And to see this raising on your foundation is an amazing thing. And realizing the hours and the care that it has been given. JT, you do I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think one thing you'd find around here is that we're all a bunch of wood nerds. When that amazing piece of wood shows up in the shop here, it wouldn't be uncommon for Darren to call me over and be like, "Look at how tight the grain is, or the knot structure, or how the vertical grain on this piece is going to lay." I mean, we geek out on this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's worth paying attention to, because it's beautiful and it means something to our hearts and our souls. JT, you do a lot of work in the shop. Most of your work is right in the shop with the guys. How do you bring craft into your role in the shop, and how does it tie in with what Darren does out on the raising?
Sure. You know, my role is you know is a managerial level, and I hope that I'm here to inspire the people that I work with. You know, teaching people to be craftsmen, training people to be craftsmen, inspiring those people. You know, and oversight. I love to lead, I love to teach, and I love to show what I can do. But I also like to help be a guide for people who work here and help them be the best that they can be.
Mhm.
Certainly,
Mhm.
you
So
know, as well as all the administrative stuff that gets done as well.
yeah, so you're actually taking your cabinet making skills to a level of large timber, still precision work, and watching each of your team members there perform those functions right on every timber in the shop.
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I don't know. It's passing on that knowledge and being part of the experience is what really you know that's what fills my heart.
Yeah,
I love to share this with other people. The community and the team that we've built here is
yeah,
really amazing.
yeah. So I'm going to ask you sort of a personal question here. What's a good day in the shop?
I think a good day is when things are. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, don't tell me about the bad ones. I want to hear about the good ones.
You know, a good day is when everything's flowing and people are smiling and we're making sawdust. Um, you know, that's what we do. That's what we do here. You know, a good day is when Darren points out an awesome piece of wood, or we put together a joint and it's just like a piston fit. Um, a good day is when someone learns a new technique and you know is able to use it or express it in a timber. Um, a good day is when a job goes out the door or a new one starts.
Yeah. We like to see them go out the door. That makes us happy. Uh, Darren, what makes a raising special for your clients when you're on site? What's that magic about?
Uh, it's really the relationship that you build with the client, that you've built with the client, that transfers onto us when we arrive. Their excitement about seeing their house come together, start coming together. At this point, most of the time, the houses have all been subgrade and just coming up to the deck when we show up. So they get to see the timbers, see them start being assembled into Benson sections, trusses, and whatnot, and then culminating in the raising day. We've had many a raising day end with a great party. Uh, Homeowners have done a great job for us, and as we try to do for them on every raising. It it it's an amazing thing to go from a flat deck with a bunch of stuff piled on it to a house in a day. Uh, and it is like I said earlier, it usually is a day. So it's a very quick turnaround from little to lots.
Yes, I've watched many raisings, and I am always in awe of the what I would sort of refer to it as a ballet of the team and how all of these pieces come together, each person knowing what the other one's thinking and doing and one step ahead, and watching this just develop into a glorious wooden skeleton that will become your home. It's pretty, especially when the weather's nice, it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
And having gone from looking at the shop drawings, which are an amazing piece of work in their own right, to seeing the actual mass and scope of the timber in place is a completely different understanding of what you get to live in.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. So I want to talk. We have a video that we might want to watch here in just one second, but I want to ask a question here first. The team that JT and you, Darren, are orchestrating in the shop, the gentlemen who cut the frame, who finish it, who surface it and stain it, or whatever the features are are the same gentlemen who show up on the site and raise it. So they're intimate with every square inch of that frame. They may not know exactly where they're headed the day they are leaving for the raising, and they don't know the clients, but that relationship and that event happens regardless. Let's talk about that teamwork for just a second. What's in the shop, what happens on the raising, and how those blend together.
Wow. Yeah, it starts from even before we start cutting it in the shop. As the frame is being designed, we look for the sequence of how it's going to have to actually be raised so that it can all fit together properly on site, smoothly and efficiently. Mm-hmm. From that informs how we're going to pack the timbers to load onto the truck, to unload at the site, to how they'll assemble on that day.
Mm-hmm. That teamwork is incredible. I remember a raising maybe 2 years ago that was here in Ann Arbor. I watched the team, 4 gentlemen, work tirelessly through July heat and a rainstorm. And actually, we lost a day because of the rain, so we had to make it up, and they did. Mm-hmm. And I turned to the framer that had done the sides of the house in conventional framing. Somebody I know well, 30 years in the business, and I said to him, John, how long would it have taken you to unpack, stage, and raise this frame? We'd been there 2.5 days. He said, oh, probably about 3 weeks. I would not even have known where to start. So that teamwork is really, really important. It also translates to efficiency, our efficiency on the job site, the efficiency in getting in and out and doing our job, and cost control for our clients. That's what it's all about. Deanna, you're in the wings here. If you want to go ahead and run that video, I think it's kind of the right time, and it demonstrates what we're talking about. So if you can key that up, we'd sure appreciate it.
Things
That was fun.
What an incredible day. That was my favorite racing that I've been on. Just so much fun. So much got done in that single day, and everyone working as a team, just translated into such a beautiful building.
Yeah, that was quite a team. So explain who our client was, either one of you.
Our client was the Benedictine monks of Mount Angel, Oregon. They have a brewery business, which is a fairly traditional, actually very traditional business for them across the U.S. and Europe. They had, as the video mentioned, planted those trees 100 plus years ago. They were brought down, sawn, brought to our facility where we did all the fabrication for it. Took it out there, and in one day with around 100 people, we assembled that building from scratch. It was truly amazing to see it all come together.
Yeah, that's incredible. And speak to the fact that it was a hand raising rather than a crane raising.
Yeah, well, as you saw, there were no cranes. We did have a forklift for moving materials around, but it was not utilized in the raising process.
Mm-hmm.
On a typical raising, obviously, we're using cranes. We're there with a 4 to maybe 6 person crew. And obviously we need the heavy equipment to do that lifting for us. We do some smaller raisings where we'll put them up with a forklift and things in backyards where we are pushing things up by hand, but for the most part, we are working with a crane.
Mm-hmm. So that video really shows the craft and the hands-on work and the teamwork of a timber frame. And maybe that was a slightly different project, but many of them are that way, and we're proud of the end result. And what a fun day. My goodness, it looked like I hadn't seen that video before. That looked like a lot of fun. I wish I'd been there.
Oh man, it was great. And it took every last ounce of daylight to get us right to the end, but there was no sun left by the time we were nailing the branch to the very top. But, yeah. And we were tired, but man, it was good.
It looked great. Great. All right. So we have a question about the balance between our CNC machine, that big blue and yellow thing that's over JT's shoulder that does some of the rough cutting, and the work in our shops, the handwork in our shops. How do you marry those two together?
I'll take that. Really, it's all just part of the craft these days. There are smaller shops that don't run them, but historically, the best equipment was used that was available. Mm-hmm. This is some of the best equipment that's available, and that's why we utilize it. Mm-hmm. Not because we think it's, superior in some way to 2 or 3 guys in a small shop, but it's just more efficient. It's easier on us, quite honestly. Yeah. It does the heavy lifting and allows us to pay closer attention to the details.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, every piece gets touched by hand after going through the machine. It's checked for layout, it's measured, and then we go into doing the handwork. The machine, as amazing as it is, has its own limitations, and it doesn't have the eye of a craftsman or the precision of a craftsman that comes in and touches those timbers, taps out the joints, drills and fits everything, and then does all the hand finishing as well. Mm-hmm. It's just a tool.
Yeah. So you have specialized craftsmen in the shop. When you're thinking about hiring somebody, JT, to be in the shop and add to the team, what kind of values and techniques, and what are you looking for? What are you looking for in that person?
Absolutely. I mean, passion and attention to detail and an eye for quality are all critical characteristics. But a team player with a positive attitude really that's what makes it or breaks it for me. A lot of the things that we learn are not skills that are commonly possessed. Timber framing is a is an art, and it's a unique art. So I can't always, we can't always find people who are 20-year veterans, such as Darren. So part of it is bringing people in who we can train. And I look for people who are open to that, who are going to share a passion in craftsmanship, certainly.
Yeah, that's a great point. The attitude is a lot, and it makes up for a lot. You can train people to do these skills, but if they don't have the right attitude and they're not a team player, they may not be for us. So that's good to hear. This country has lost a lot of its hands-on craftsmanship. We've lost it to other countries. We've become a technical society and a keyboard society. We're trying our best to create new timber framers through the guild and through workshops and sponsorships and so forth. Darren, what do you see as the next generation for timber framers? Who are they, and how are they going to tackle the next challenges that we see?
Oh boy, they're interested in craft. They're interested in working with their hands. They're interested in being outside.
Mm-hmm. Traveling,
absolutely. I was thinking about all of the places that I've been, and I've been to Alaska and all the way back to nearly New York City with New Energy Works, and that's a great part of the job.
Yeah. How does somebody become a timber framer?
Many different ways. One of which is, coming through our front door, answering one of our ads, and we'll train them from there. Where I got my start was through the Timber Framers Guild. They offer classes, usually a couple times a year. They now have a great new school, not new, but the school has become part of the Timber Framers Guild back in Massachusetts.
Right.
And
Artwood
School, yeah. And that's a great resource. Will Beamer has run that school for years and years, and he's the one that he and Dave Carlin are the ones that taught the class that I took in Colorado back in 2002.
Yeah. If anybody in the audience would like to have a connection to the Timber Framers Guild, please email me, drake@newenergyworks.com. I'm glad to put you in touch with the right people. It's a wonderful organization. It's probably now almost 500 people strong from every walk of life: homeowners, suppliers, tool makers, timber framers. As JT said, wood nerds. We all share in the love of wood in itself, and everybody brings a different perspective and a different view. It's a neat organization, and I'll say it's where I discovered New Energy Works. At one of the guild meetings, I ran into Jonathan, and he and I had developed a relationship from that very first meeting. So it works, and it's a great resource. JT, what's your favorite part of the timber frame process?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the raising is where all the glory is. But if I think about it, I actually love the Hundigger. It's so funny, and I think it's part of my own geeking out over tools, and being able to, use it and tune it. It's not a printer. You don't click a button and all of a sudden you have parts. It takes refinement and tuning and just to get it to glide perfectly through the wood like any tool. Mm-hmm. So, maybe it's my geeky side, wood nerd and tool nerd, I'll admit. And with those things, I'll say that I think that the Hundigger is actually one of my favorite parts, though certainly the raisings are glorious.
Yes. Yeah. We have a Hundigger in both of our shops, also one in New York. And one of the things that I often refer to is its accuracy, the fact that it does the heavy lifting, that it actually helps us with production time, of course, because it does the work of several men in a shorter period of time, which means that your frame can be cut, go into the hand shop, have all the fine work done there, and out the door and delivered to your job site in a short, compressed time frame. That's important for not only business efficiency, but also for the quality of the wood. Because if wood sits around too long and that joinery has been cut, it's going to start to move a little bit. So the fact that we can compress that time frame from start to delivery to raising really is efficient for all of us. It's efficient for the timber framers and it's efficient for our clients. That's important.
Absolutely.
Darren, I think I've got one last question before maybe we open this up to our question and answer period. And that would be about the Guild. I think the Guild, I'll go back to my Scantlings magazine and the Guild magazine that we get quarterly. It talks about all aspects of architecture and the tools and the people and events. Can you touch on that? Because you've been a member for a long time.
Yeah, so between Scantlings and the Timber Framing Journal that comes out quarterly, there's an amazing wealth of knowledge afforded to us every year, varying from timber framing specific geeky joinery to cultural happenings. There was a big project that the Guild was involved in I want to say Poland a couple of years ago, and it's Eastern Europe. We'll go with Eastern Europe. That's safe. Where they built out the structure of the interior roof of an old synagogue pre-World War II that was destroyed. And it was absolutely amazing. It was a Guild project, so it was a group of people that came together to build this. They're usually a training session of sorts, as well as producing a product for, in this case, I believe it was a museum. But the Guild does a lot of projects across the country, 2 or 3 or 4 a year typically, in addition to having a conference every year. This year accepted, unfortunately, given the situation. Typically, they have one East Coast, one West Coast that are great community events to meet people, learn new techniques, just generally have a great time.
One of the most unique events at the Guild conferences is the axe throwing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. And usually we try to do that before we hit cocktail hour. But I remember the first Guild meeting there you go, the first Guild meeting that I attended, and I watched this event happen, and I was dumbfounded. I just couldn't even believe it. Thank goodness it was before the cocktail hour, so that worked out pretty well. We do have a couple of questions, and this is an important one and one that often gets brought up by our clients. What do we expect when we arrive at a raising, when we arrive to do a raising and we're getting onto a job site? What do we expect to have done by the builder or a homeowner prior to our arrival?
What do we expect prior to our arrival? We expect sound foundation, clean flat deck with all of the supporting structure that we need put in below it. Site restrictions communicated to us so that if we need to transfer ship into the site, we don't show up and realize that, oh, wow, we can't get the timbers to the site. You know, and that goes all the way back to the design. If the design needs to have shorter timbers, then we can do that. It's all a matter. Sorry, we've got a train track right behind us. Yeah, and having a clean, open site ready for us when we arrive is key to our efficiency. Showing up to a jumbled job site makes it much slower, much more difficult for us to perform the efficient way that we're used to.
So communication with the builder is really important as they construct that foundation and the first floor framing system. We have to understand site conditions, bends in the road, overhead lines, things like that. So I try to do a site visit to every project and take pictures and see what we're stepping into. Because when you gentlemen arrive, this is the first time you've typically seen this site.
Correct.
So rather than inheriting surprises, we're trying to eliminate those variables and make this an efficient situation.
There's certainly times I've seen Darren checking out Google Maps just to figure out what the, you know, what the best way in is and where he's going to put his equipment and whatnot. So the pre-construction process there is critical.
Yeah. So how many people do you normally send to a raising? Let's call it a typical project, and how long does it take to raise a frame? We've touched on the crane day being one.
Typically, we send 4 people. It's an efficient sized team. Working with the forklift, that seems to be the sweet spot. As for how long the total process takes, we're usually on site anywhere between 4 to 7 days. Sometimes it'll go out to 10 or 12. But a typical great room core of a house will go between 4 to 6 days.
Okay.
Depending upon the level of complexity, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Now we also sell and provide other materials. We provide tongue and groove material that you often see on the ceiling.
Yep.
We provide wall systems and roof systems, windows and doors. So obviously all of those follow the sequence of the frame. What's the longest period of time that you've been on site?
Oh, let's see.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, I was going to say the longest single stretch has been about 3 weeks, not quite 3 weeks. The longest total time spent on site, we were in Atlanta from, what was it, early September through just before Christmas, with another week following thereafter.
Yeah.
I think that one's been the top so far. Beautiful project, literally 3,000 miles from our shop.
Yeah, there you go. And I visited that site this past February, or maybe the first part of March, after the Atlanta show. This project is just north of town. And I witnessed what the crew had done on that whole time span, a complete enclosure, windows and doors, the whole thing. And I was received by the homeowners so welcome. They were thrilled with what the end result was. As a matter of fact, they even asked whether or not they could hire the crew to do all of the finish work on the inside of the house, because they weren't nearly as happy with the local people as they were with us from 3,000 miles away. So it was a real compliment, and it made me proud. Me proud.
This is an amazing project.
Yes.
Amazing homeowners and an amazing project.
Yeah. All right. Do you gentlemen have any additional comments that you'd like to make before we sort of wrap this up?
I mean, I'd like to thank you for having us on, Drake. It's so fun to show everybody the shop here and what we do. When we were talking about who makes a good timber framer, I think both potential timber framer candidates and clients and whatnot, the second that they come into the shop and you can just see that there's a level of awe and the jaw drops at what we do, the scale, the complexity, and the people here who are working and what's going on. That's when I know somebody's hooked, and that's when I know it's a right fit. And I love that moment. I had that moment, and I've seen it many times.
One of the things that always impresses me about woodwork is the unique tools, how we take ownership of the tools. Sometimes we actually get into projects just so we can buy new tools.
I don't know any woodworker who's ever done that, Drake.
Yes. Darren, you're clearly a hands-on kind of guy. Can you share, do you have any tools nearby besides that axe that you could show us?
Yeah, happily. This is probably my favorite and nearly most used tool. It's a Lee Nielsen number 102 low angle block plane that I have used so much. I've replaced the blade once already, and this blade is nearing the end of its life. Um, it has shaped all manner of timber joints and curves and you name it.
Mm-hmm. And you carry that in your pouch with you as you're raising
Absolutely.
a frame?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Endlessly useful.
Yeah.
Another thing I love of Darren's tools is his chisel. You know, our chisels are probably about this long, and Darren's is about this much shorter because he sharpened it so many times. It's a sight to behold.
Yep.
I've often remarked at Darren's bags, his tool bags, because he's got everything under the sun inside there. Well, there you go. Yeah, that's about 3 inches shorter. Yeah, he's got everything in those bags under the sun, including an old sandwich, I think, from the last raising. It always amazes me what he pulls out of that tool bag. All right. One question from our crowd. Does your team work with any outside builders, or do we do all of the work ourselves when we're on site? Do we get a hand from other people is basically what that question is about.
Occasionally is the right answer to that. We do, on occasion, what we refer to as a consultant raising, where we will send out one person to work with the contractor's crew to raise a generally simple frame. We also, on occasion, will have additional help from the contractor. So our 4 people will come out, and we will borrow 2 from the contractor, or 1, or, you know, they like to have their person run the forklift for whatever reason. And so we're happy to accommodate that. And it's always great to work with them so that they really get a feel for the heart and soul that we've put into the project, getting to the point where we're handing over our baby to them. Mm-hmm. Versus it's the thing that somebody else came in and did. So that's always nice. We occasionally do projects where we've worked with homeowners, and they've worked with us for a time here in the shop and then gone out and raised the frame. And that one in specific was done as a consultant raising with the homeowner and his fireman friends. So that was quite the project, but it was great to have him here in the shop for 2 weeks, cutting his frame and getting it ready to go. And then one of our former co-workers went out and raised it with him, and to this day they still chat once in a while.
That's right. I've been to that site. It's an amazing frame, and that gentleman speaks very highly of the experience that he had both in the shop and on site with his friends and our teamwork. Yeah.
So yes.
Great.
Short answer, yes, we work in a number of different capacities with what is going to be right for the project.
Yeah. Well, and the video we just showed demonstrates that. I mean, I would guess that virtually all of those people had never done a project like that whatsoever at all, other than, lifting boxes in the basement. That's the closest they've ever gotten to heavy lifting. And yet that project went together very smoothly, and it wasn't a small one. It was a big building.
Yeah.
So that's a compliment not only to the wood itself and the joinery and the accuracy, but to the sequencing that all of you did to make that work and to draw all those people together as a team. Yeah. We see some activity beginning again in the shop. I think you sent, JT, you sent everybody to an early lunch so things would be quiet, didn't you?
It's amazing what pizza will do.
Yeah. Well, we didn't want chainsaws running and block planes and so forth. So we appreciate the time out. We see that the guys are just about ready to get back to work. A question just came in about the sawhorses that are behind you. And you might want to take a minute to talk about those because we have many of them in both of our shops. I know that you gentlemen constructed them all. So tell us how that developed.
They are an integral part of our craft because if we didn't have strong timber framed sawhorses to hold up our timbers and quite honestly protect them from additional damage, our job would be much harder. As for what you can see behind me, we've got a number of sawhorses out holding timbers. These happen to be some posts for a project that we'll be taking to Coeur d'Alene here in the next couple of weeks. This is a newer design of horse that we've got versus our slightly older design over here. We've come up with a better way to make them last longer.
Okay.
And for the 50 sake, we also have these are the short horses over here, what we call them.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, and they're all at a good working height, aren't they? So that you're, except for the short ones, but most of them are at your waist level, so that you're efficient with your tools.
Right. Given the size of the timbers, the horses seem shorter than they would for a generalized workbench. The timbers bring themselves up to a good working height, and we're at the height where we've found to be most useful. We've got some low horses that we use for different processes, or larger timbers. The one that's laying down behind JT is a little deceptive. It's actually 18 inches tall and did get worked on some low horses. And then we've got some higher horses that come into play when we're doing, say, a carving, and need to be closer to that work. So they've developed over time into their own specific individual uses.
Mm-hmm. And they're all mortise and tenon, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So they're not only functional, but they also represent the keen work that we do, the same joinery that we do on our frames. And they sort of carry that same theme throughout all your work.
Oh yeah, they're pegged together. There's no glue or nails.
Nope.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And they'll last indefinitely, just like our frames.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. There may be a new message here. Bear with me here 1 second. Okay. I can't see any other messages that have come in from our viewers. I've asked all the questions that I would like to have addressed. Do you gentlemen have any more comments?
I think I'm good.
You're good, Darren?
Yeah. No, I think we covered it.
Well, I appreciate your participation today and all the great comments. Folks, you're more than welcome to review this again at a later date on our website. If you have additional questions, don't hesitate to email us or phone call us. We're always eager to help with the information and the education of our timber frames. And we're part of the team, and we'd love to be a partner in your project. Stay safe, be well, stay in touch. By the way, our next session is not 2 weeks away, it's 1 week away. It'll be next Thursday, June 18, and it will be a special one because Jonathan Orpin, our founder and owner, will be joining us, and he'll give you his perspective on our business, on the timber frame industry, and probably a few other opinions because he's a strong guy and we love him, and we give him a lot of credit for developing this business and taking us where we are today. That said, have a great day, have a great weekend, stay safe, and we'll be seeing you next Thursday. Goodbye.
Thank you, Drake. Take care.
Bye-bye.